but we do have one more speaker, so I hope that you can stay. It's Alistair Nicholson, and Alistair has extensive experience in translating business strategic change into real outcomes through technology implementations. And Alistair's currently working at the Future Vision Office in EDS, and I didn't realise until now that I think I actually know Alistair from a former life. So Alistair, it's good to see you, and please tell us about Future Vision.
All right, now I understand the timetable in Canberra, and that we're running very late. So this has a number of checklists so you can, to enable you to take action at the end of this seminar. So we're going to put it up on the candidates' website, and we're also taking a video of this, which will be on YouTube and the candidates' website. What the aim here is, I've started with the future starts now, because we've had some very interesting speakers that have covered a whole range of areas. What happens now? What are we going to do when we go back? So one of the things I want to help you with is a set of 8 memoirs to help you review it. I mean, we've got educated presenters, we've got an educated audience, I recognise a lot of faces here. So it's just, how do we help you through the next stage? In terms of talking about preparing for the future and the challenges and opportunities for the ICT industry, the funny thing is that nothing sharpens the mind like a crisis. And I want to talk about how we survive. Now, people argue about whether survival is important within the public sector. Well, it certainly is. Organisations come and go all the time, especially with cabinet reshuffles. So we're looking at a number of crises. It's not just the economic crisis that affects the private and the public sector. But within the public sector, we have the Gershon Review, we have the budget cuts and so on. Within business, the way we do business is changing. It's changing dramatically. The internet wave is starting to really affect the way that we interact with our customers as well as our fellow businesses. And so our responses to this need to be different as well. So I want to position us to survive through this year and position us for the year to come. What EDS did about was invest strategically in the Future Vision Office. And this was the first of the Future Vision Office networks around the world that was established in Australia. The idea being that we can share information across jurisdictions, across countries. What we need to do, and this is common across IT, is to communicate better at the senior levels of management, because the challenge is survival, but we are also the answer to survival. But we don't communicate that well sometimes as technologists. So we're extending that communication through a dedicated channel. And the principal of this, Nicole Cameron, and I guess the more astute of you have realised that I'm not Nicole, has very good communication skills at that ministerial and secretarial level. So why me? Well, I lead the technical subject matter expert team within EDS, and I support the Future Vision Office, and therefore we're practicing what we're preaching. It's not just the business telling us what to do, it's us helping the business find new ways of doing business. And you had a talk from Anne Stewart about AGOS. Now there are real significant business savings within the AGOS project for a number of organisations. IT in some organisations is having difficulty explaining that up to management so that the budgeting takes that cycle into account. It's seen as a technical project, not a business project, but there are new capabilities that are coming through the government service point. So by marrying the technology expertise to anchor the business so that we're coming up with ideas that can be delivered in the real world, and that's my role, therefore I'm very hot on that. But also telling the business about new opportunities, new strategic opportunities that will help with survival. Now, engaging at the top is something we all have to do better in our organisations. You can help use the Future Vision Office within your organisation, or do it yourselves, or use lobbyists, or whatever you do. But one of the things we've found is that the Future Vision Office has a very high credibility, higher than most, well, the average lobbyist anyway, because we're building a collaborative approach with government, and IT and business need to build a collaborative approach with organisations. One thing I do want to bring to your attention is that out of the Future Vision Office, because we have contacts around other jurisdictions and other governments doing the same sort of, facing the same sort of challenges that we are, there's a series of white papers, there's a series of seminars, and if you don't have an invitation, talk to Nicole because you should have one. Now my friend Andrew Boyd says it's not about the technology, but it's not about the technology. It's not just business telling us what to do, it's us also telling business what is feasible, new ways of doing business that are enabled by the technology. It's not about the technology, but it is about the new capabilities. And I use the analogy of the motor vehicle, that you don't just go out and buy a four-wheel drive or a Mack truck on the possibility that you're going to do something. But if that's the business requirement, you need to know that that's available. If you have a need to go off-road, you need to know that you're going to buy a four-wheel drive. If you want to go on a camping holiday, it's a marriage of the driver and the machine. Business sets the strategic direction and the requirements, but you need the technology that's realistic and mappable, and you need to know what's achievable from where you are now. So if you don't have a Mack truck, it's a bit difficult to have this whole business plan around a transport company, unless you've got a way of getting to there. So the technology does matter, and we've seen some cases where people go a little bit wild with their ideas. And when we talk about new capabilities, I do want to mention social media, because social media, it's a bit like the Mack truck. If you start twittering and if you start running blogs, and you don't really know why you're doing it, and you really don't know what you're trying to achieve, you can spend an awful lot of money in terms of maintaining it. So each type of vehicle has strict limitations on it. Each type of current infrastructure has strict limitations. If you want to go somewhere else, that's fine, but we need to map a way. Now, one of the concerns I have during this time of crisis is that service transformation is one of the themes that has come through consistently, perhaps phrased in different ways, but through the talks here today and yesterday, we're always talking about how do we help our organisations survive, compete, or do things more cost effectively. We do need to support the utility things, we need to keep the financial management systems running and so on. But we also need to keep the strategic capability, the ones that differentiate us, the ones that mean we can meet new business objectives or new policy requirements or new ministerial outreach initiatives. That means we've got to keep enough funds, we've got to explain ourselves to the business enough to make sure we've got the funds to transform. And if I can use an example, there are a couple of large departments that have very large paper-based forms processes now. And for them, a smart form through AGOS was going to save a lot of money, except they've got to convert. So they've got to redesign their business processes, they've got to make sure they're tested, they're working, they've got to take their staff with them. So in fact, converting to smart forms might save them a lot of money. It will save them a lot of money next financial year. So we've got to get over that hurdle. So we need to have both an understanding in the business about what the savings are within the public sector and what we need to do to invest to make those improvements. If we just allow our budgets, if we're just seen as utility processing alone, our budgets will be stripped. That's just a law of nature. Service delivery chain is one of the big issues about who touches your customers, and do you really understand who touches your customers? And social media has really put a spanner in the works on understanding that. But I just want to give you one example. I'll use that term. Our washing machine broke down. We contacted our favourite washing machine repairman. Now, you know that if you've got somebody that's valuable and knows what they're doing, you keep a track of them. He no longer works on that brand. And I asked why. There's nothing wrong with the brand, nothing wrong with the design, nothing wrong with the parts. The problem is that the supporting catalogue website that the repair people order from is unreliable, orders come that sometimes it's the wrong part because the catalogue might be corrupted, or they're delayed because people don't fulfil properly. Any number of reasons. And so he has to deal with angry customers, explain why he's got to go back for another week to order another part. And then there's the transport time and collection time, and then he's got to decide whether he's going to charge the customer or not. So he recommends a different brand, and we've bought a new washing machine. And I suspect that brand X has no idea why we've left them and why we have a new washing machine. Because they clearly haven't tracked down through all their supply chain and understood all of the other ways that people touch their customers. It's nothing to do with television advertising. This has nothing to do with a forum on the website. This is just one of their service delivery areas that they're failing in. And it's very easy in our systems to have these little, little black holes that appear out of somewhere and not know about them. So we really do need to check our service delivery chain. The median time for this talk is 22.5 minutes for those of you who want to know. So I'm not going to go and drill down too far into detail. But we've adapted the Porter Forces model to the public sector because there's so much commonality between the public sector and the private sector that people don't understand. There's still funding and performance demands. It doesn't come from the shareholders, it comes from the Department of Finance, and it comes from, I've testified before the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, and I think they're on my side, and I'm not going to do it again in a hurry. So, we understand that there are pressures on people. Uncontrolled change is happening to us, whether we like it or not, in terms of the technology, the way businesses perform, policy changes and legislation changes. They're driving costs that we cannot predict. And we have our constraints also in terms of ABS values that affect it, legislative values and so on. So these are actually quite common between the public sector and the private sector, just in a slightly different form. But the core for all of these, and this is particularly true as social media starts to impact us, as it will, whether we like it or not, is the governance. The governance around our ICT, the processes that we put in place to manage it, and the people. And people matter, because when you look at every software competition, the difference in performance, and these are people who self-evaluate as being the best of the best, the difference in performance between the top and the bottom is still a factor of 10 times difference in terms of their speed of performance. And when you apply that across our systems, we need to understand who our valuable people are and what we need to do about them. Now, some of these issues also are common to the private sector as well as the public sector. Government services being citizen-centric. This is happening to business no matter where you're placed. Identity management is a core issue, no matter where you're placed. Green government, well, green issues. We were hearing earlier about 10 megawatts, did you say, for a trailer? I mean, that's a spectacular amount of power drawdown. I'm glad the picture was blue. I would have thought it would be sort of flaming red with that sort of power capacity. Transformation and modernisation is the only way we will survive. We will be required, whether we're private or public sector, we'll be required to do it for survival. And organisations, public or private, that don't convert, that don't transform, that don't have a citizen-centric agenda, will be swallowed either by the marketplace or by a reshuffle. We're talking survival here. It's really that stuff. And Gershon is part of what's driving that agenda. So whether you like what he says or not, a number of organisations have their budgets sliced because they're expected to use services like DAGOS, because they're expected to become more citizen-centric, because they're expected to share services. So we can help talk to you about how that can work, how that can save money. And that's part of the Future Vision Office value proposition, I think, is in communicating out to senior management that this is not a techo project, this is a business project, a business transformation project. All of these factors coming together to create a perfect wave. And those of you, just some older people here, my sort of age, maybe not quite that old, but we've all seen these waves come through when mainframes were really knocked about by the mid-range, the Unix and ENTs emerging. The huge change that came about with browser-oriented work patterns. We've been, and again, in different forms, and we're facing one now, a perfect storm, a combination of economic, business transformation, technology, and social interaction changes we haven't seen before. Now, when everybody talks about the cyclic nature of recessions, we understand and we focus on what makes everything go down. I want to talk about what makes things come back. What brings economies back? What brings companies back? What takes them through recessions? And there are things, the myth is that it's wars. Well, the Second World War is on one of those bumps, but you can see the First World War is at near a peak. It's not necessarily war-based. It's usually technology or business transformation based. So it's rolling out the railways, particularly in the US. It's the development of the steam engine, of mass production, and of rolling out the internet, which has probably helped extend the right-hand side of our current upswing. This chart's a little dated. But we have another change in business. And I can't convey enough how essential it is that we're on the right side of this change. Otherwise we'll just be speed bumps on the road to progress as the steamroller goes past. Because these transformations are critical. So the first little checklist is to go back and talk through and make sure you understand what the plans are for survival, the strategic and tactical developments that you, IT and business in partnership, are going to put on the table to bring your organisation through. Where are the cost savings and why? And what do you need in your budgets to do that? Because those five forces are driving you. And does business understand? Do the people preparing the budgets understand the technology and behavioural changes and the policy changes that are going to affect the costs of ICT? And in terms of service transformation, yes, we have lots of choices. SOA, we have social media, we can do all sorts of things. Choosing the right choice is really important. But about one thing you have no choice. It's mandatory. You have to do it. Agility is one of those things that we need to really understand, and it's going to help us get through the next 1 and 2 years. So we need to understand agile techniques and make sure that we have a capability to manage them. There's this view that agile is management free. That's a very good way to have a disaster. I can give you a written guarantee if you like. Because we need to understand how to manage it. We really need to understand how to do it. So we need to start practicing agile techniques and get our organisations much more responsive. So we have methodology, other methodologies in the marketplace. Make sure that your methodology is appropriate to the level of organisation, to the level of project. Now, there's a myth that you can't use them on large, complex projects. My argument is that Agile is the only way to handle large, complex projects in any effective way. Large projects have a lot of large problems, and we kid ourselves if we think we're doing traditional waterfall methodologies right. Because Brooks, who wrote The Mythical Mammoth, who I think we all revere, it was a large IBM operating systems development project. In 6 months, the workbook was about 5 feet thick. When you look at the daily changes, I ask you, how many people could keep across 2 inches worth of documentation or 150 pages a day and really understand the project? It's really well documented. But is that a project under control? The answer is no, it's not. So we do have to have better techniques to keep these projects under control. Agile on the other hand, has a real ability to go wrong. If you're being asked to do a project, the one thing you must understand is what does a finish look like? And there are a lot of things that you can do. I know we're going to define a lot of things as we go on, but there are a lot of things that you really can do to nail it down before you even start. How is help going to be supported? How is documentation going to be supported? My wife works in a wonderful organisation where every spreadsheet has a help spreadsheet attached to it. Every screen on the computer system has a help attached to it with wikis and addressable wikis. There's no reason not to be able to do it, but you need to know how you're delivering it before you deliver it. You don't have to define every page, but you need to know what finished looks like. You need to know what the major purpose of the system is for. And I laugh because I've seen some developments where that hasn't happened. Not in EDS, of course. Higher skill set is required. And I keep coming back to people. Understand your valuable people, the people you really do need to keep. And they're not always the noisy ones. Understand the quiet achievers that are essential. Separate that from the people that have made themselves indispensable, because they are one of your biggest problems, because they don't share. And finally, if you've got a good vision of what finish looks like, that helps you deal with unexamined scope creep. But it will happen. So, just understand how to manage it so you can handle it much better. There's good news and bad news about open media. Mostly it's bad. It's coming with you like people are going to use Twitter, people are going to blog, people are going to Facebook. There's a real risk with this. You're going to be asked to do this by your ministers. You're going to be asked to do that increasingly. The costs can be quite surprising. To run a Twitter really is almost a full-time job if you're going to do it properly. If you're going to be active. The downside is not going away. The upside is there are real rewards if you do it right, if it's appropriate for you. And this comes back to understand the business objectives, understand the costs as well before you do it, and understand how it's going to fit in with your systems. IBM has started to use it now to handle their partnering arrangements, because they're trying to build more cohesive teams as they deliver their solutions. So that's going to be an interesting experiment to watch. The positives and negatives, they're just starting. Probably best not to be a pioneer on that side of things. I want to talk about understanding it's not going away because of Lou Gerstner. Now, I was with IBM at the time that he arrived. And IBM was in real trouble because the internet wave had come through. Sun had, the network is the computer. The big iron wasn't moving, and really IBM was very much a big iron company in those days. Gerstner didn't pretend the internet wasn't happening. Instead, he reorganised IBM as an internet services company. He became internet facing. And that pulled IBM through, and look at where it is today. And the big iron started to sell again because he repositioned it as service. You need to find out, and you need to be proactive because you're going to be asked by your political masters how to handle social media. So you need to find out what the benefits can be, and how you can handle a social media program, and how you can respond positively, because you're going to have to do it whether you like it or not. The Obama campaign was the nail in the coffin for all of us who wanted to walk away from this. We can't walk away from it anymore, because that demonstrated that it can be effective. But hidden within it, and almost no article I've read, is a clear understanding that I've got to convey that every supervisor who was recruited through it was first measured. They were never promoted automatically just through the community. They were always measured on their results, and they were interviewed. And then they were promoted to the local organiser. So it had a built-in management and reporting function that I've seen almost no articles on it. And that is what is critical if you're going to start organising some of these systems. You must manage them at every level and manage the community. Do not ever promote people within a community without understanding their performance. And the last point, public and private sector. The other reason it's coming with you like others, as soon as the Obama election was over, Harvard Business School started blogging about social media. And so all the bright new MBAs that are being recruited around the world in your competitors or in other organisations understand this stuff really, really well, and they're going to do it really, really well. And if you're in the private sector in particular, you have to compete. Before we go into a full-blown positive campaign, what about the defensive issues? Is your brand protected? Now, when you hear about the real Kevin Rudd on Twitter, or some of the other ministers who've been impersonated, at first it's quite amusing until it happens to you. So the question for you is your organisation ID protected across the major social media sites? It's relatively easy to do. So this is my gift to you for today, is first of all, check that. Who is representing you online in Twitter right now? Do you know? And do you have a plan in place to stop false identities? Talking defensively without spending a lot of money, but just ensuring that you're on top of things. How often do you scan your blogs? How often do you scan what's being said about your organisation proactively? How often do you go back and check the new popular sites to see about the new emerging community sites that you need to protect your brand on? Who is representing your organisation out there today? Do you have a Twitter robot to search for your keywords, to see what they're saying about you? It's not easy. And if you don't, how do you know what's going on? Now, Commonwealth Bank, for instance, does. And because they intervened really quickly in one of the loan issues that had gone bad, they turned it into a positive. Sorry about that. They turned it into a positive, but they also didn't have a PR disaster. Whereas if they'd left it unmoderated, a PR disaster was guaranteed. So, what are you doing about Twitter? What's your open media policy? Because people in your organisation are blogging right now, whether you like it or not. They're on Facebook, whether you like it or not. They're on YouTube, whether you like it or not. Have you really communicated a blogging policy to all of your staff and explained it? So one of the things I wanted to do is, who here has actually got a written blogging or social media policy that they've conveyed to staff? Anybody? I'm really pleased, because that means I can actually contribute value. Because here's an example from the US Air Force of a blogging decision tree. So I'm giving it to you. I can give it to you because it's US government and it's not secure, and therefore it's in the public domain. So take this, adapt it, and start managing the damage before it happens, because you need to manage social media. You do need to convey a specific policy. And these blog response considerations down the bottom, because I didn't do this, I can therefore say this is actually a really brilliant piece of work. It's very concise, and I don't know how much effort went into it, but if you can take this and adapt it, and then start to adapt it for Twitter and some of the other things, and publish it through your staff, at least you're communicating with them about what is and is not acceptable. And we're seeing some really interesting incidents, particularly in some of the more secure agencies, where information that should just not be published is being published. So we need to start communicating with our own staff about some of this. I'm not going to go through all of these changes in detail, and in fact some of them have been covered by previous speakers. If we talk about sensor technology, so HP has a central nervous system of the Earth experiment where they're using multiple sensors. IPv6 is essential to it, sensor technology and wireless is essential to it. So you can start to monitor bridges, but you can also do this within your own environments. So you can start to do chemical awareness, pollution awareness, a number of other applications. We need to relate to that, start to manage our performance much better across different different service delivery organisations and policy organisations who want to know about the service delivery. Semantic web, I don't want to spend a lot on that, but people are starting to find new ways of information. You at least have some automated tools available so you can index or create metadata for your information much better. Then you can publish it better through AWASP and other tools like that. Social network integration is coming, so you've got to deal with it, I'm sorry. But I can't emphasise that enough. That is one of the big issues that's really going to give us some potential efficiencies, some potential benefits and some potential rewards. But if we have no plan before it hits, we're going to be caught. Netbooks and smartphones are just more ways of accessing our information. But as we transform our organisations, we make more efficient and effective business processes, become more agile in our processes, and we develop new tools. For instance, one of the unexpected benefits is that our organisations become more resilient, and that becomes a general property. And an example has been where we were talking about the flu earlier. The flu's had a couple of goes at us now, H5N1. So it will come. My question to you is, how would your organisation cope if your office was closed tomorrow as part of an epidemic or pandemic management measure? Would your organisation cope? Would your network cope? Do people have a way of working? Even an EDS would have a problem with that. We've thought through homework, people working from home. We've got quite a number of them at the moment. But even our system would be stressed if we had to close our central offices. But if you've got tools like virtual workspaces, the sharing of screens, so that if you've got a developer who's mocking up a prototype, it's available on the desktop to the client. You can at least bring some of your teams together. Those new tools, those new ways of working, they all create the resilience that will enable us to survive. If we want to have a future, the challenge is survival. ICT can enable the new business processes that help that survival. We have to communicate that better. If you're having problems communicating better, Nicole Cameron seems to have real skill at communicating at the high levels, the top levels within departments, so give her a call. But there are also the seminars and the white papers that we have that you can help to market your systems upwards within business and to explain to them the new capabilities that are available. Because we need to, if we are to enjoy the opportunities, we need to reserve the funding for the strategic changes that need to be made. So I hope that's of help. The checklist there is going to be shared. Take it away, review it. Thank you.
Look, thanks for that, Alistair. Look, I know we're really running out of time, but I just want to ask, does anybody have a question before we sort of wrap up? Okay, look, I think that, first of all, I just want to say, I think it's a great initiative of the EDS to do the Future Vision Office, and I think there's a number of us looking to see what sort of results it brings as well. Look, on that note, everybody, look, can I just say thank you very much to all the speakers and all the people who attended over the last couple of days.